So thank you very much. My name is Anni Garza, and I am an artist that for over a decade has been working with art in relation with technology and science. And as it might be a little bit puzzling why to choose such a way of approaching art, I believe it has to do with something about my generation who saw this change between not having the internet and then being connected over time with ubiquitous technology. So I am also thrilled by the fact that I am very close to science. I really like to learn about science, but I understand that the way that science approaches certain problems, it's completely different to art. With my colleagues, we've plenty talked about it, and we think that maybe these methodologies respecting to science, in which a theory is proposed and then a series of experiments are done to prove if this is right or not, if it's if it can be replicated. And on the other hand, we have the arts that are a little bit more free in a way that we experiment and then we think about if this opens a new question or not, or if it is part of some other type of relationships with other aspects of reality. So in that context, today I'm going to be talking about a little bit of my work for the past 2 years that has a lot to do with identity. Identity has been a main subject that seems to me problematic as we are expanding it through digital data and the way we are living different realities, both virtual or physical, or now with the pandemic, we can add some more to this way of expressing our identity. So this identity issue, I am approaching it especially from data. When I think about identity, I think it about as an interface for different inputs and outputs that come from embodiment to information that is constantly being produced or received through different media. When we are talking about this digital media, most of it is image and it's word, it's language. So I want to set some context to this problematic, which is what happens to all the data around our identity, both the one we are producing and the one we are receiving. And I will not talk too much about it because it is wide. It gets a lot of problems between what happens with the information we are producing and how this is stored and what is it used for and who is owning it. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about something concrete, that is how what's happening with when this ever-growing amount of data is being stored. So every time we use our cell phones, like daily, even if when we are sleeping and we have our GPS on and on, when we text, when we like someone, when we download an app and use it for something like a search in an engine, or for asking for food, or whatever it is, all this information is being stored somewhere. And that somewhere is usually servers who are owned by corporations. And these servers have to be growing more and more so they can keep saving information, and then in order to be mined, in order to be analyzed by usually artificial intelligence, and then finding patterns to, for instance, offering us better products or services, or giving us certain information to change our mindset or stuff like that. So another big issue with that is that it uses a lot of energy. Servers need to be cool in a way. So it's not only the space that they use, but also the energy that is needed. And when we are now that we are using a lot of, for instance, artificial intelligence to produce other type of things like images in Midjourney or DALI, we find yet another problem, which is how this is programmed. For instance, a lot of these neural networks and machine learning is programmed with a language called Python, which is not very focused on using the hardware in an optimal way, but to make it easy for programmers or people to just use it. And this as well uses much more energy than it would be required. And also we could think about that these neural networks, when we usually talk about artificial intelligence, we think about neural networks. As we've been producing this huge system for communicating and understanding each other and representing each other, it seems that we are heading into a lot of problems that have to do with space, privacy, energy, etc. So maybe we are not doing it the best possible way. Fortunately, artificial intelligence is not only about copying how the human brain works, but it has been developed especially by mathematicians and now by biologists. Another type of models based on agents that can interact and act and learn and be generative in a way that they would be using less much energy, in a sense that if we could have somehow an identity that wouldn't be in this so spread between this huge amount of data somehow interconnected, but instead a core of identity that would evolve and wouldn't be as used or abused as it is right now by corporations, maybe we would be changing a paradigm on how these systems work, even for programming languages. Some examples of this, one is very interesting, is the one here in the left, which is a slime mold that is very used now. It's very analyzed now, because this mold grows in a certain way that can solve puzzles or many other complex models with the less possible energy. So this is what the project is mainly based on. On this part, we have some cellular automata that if you've ever happened to read about Wolfram, he's trying to explain many things through this type of models. And this isn't new for artists as well. Many artists are aware of this possibility of changing information or understanding the world through microbes. We have Eduardo Kac, we have Annika G, Heather Dewey Hackborg, Ken Rinaldo, who are working sometimes inserting information in these microbes or bacteria, and sometimes just reading what is happening when they grow. So the first question I wanted to ask for my research was, okay, how can I have agency again on my data? How can I check where it is, or how can I extract it from these systems that are purely digital? So I thought, of course, the first part of the basic part of my data is DNA. So with my molecular biologist friend, we extracted our blood, and from there we extracted our DNA. And we selected certain sequences to be used for certain purposes. For instance, because we all humans share like more than 99% of our DNA. So what makes me, it's a very, very small amount of sequences in my DNA. So we selected 6 that had to do with brain growth, opposable thumbs, personal identification that is used in Mexico with corpses, so they can recognize the identity, and so on. And then the second question was, okay, now I have my DNA. What am I supposed to do with it? If we upload it again to the digital realm, there will be no possibility of experimenting with this information. So what we did was to put them in bacteria, in plasmids. And we made these plasmids. Sometimes we light them up with UV light, and this would make mutations. Some of them would die, and some of them would have mutations. And I also wanted it to modify not only my information or evolve, because this type of mutations point over evolution, but I also wanted it to change something else, something that had to do with image. So I chose part of my biometrics, that was my fingerprint and my iris, and made them grow in there. So after, they grow very fast. Actually, they take like 14 hours in good weather. So we repeated this many times, and then we extracted the mutations, and then we use it for something else. Like, okay, this information of me is gonna be saved forever in these Petri boxes. But what else how can I explain in an artistic way that this actually happened? And then we came back to the digital realm and designed some kind of program that would use these mutations to change other people's representations. So these mutations, what they do, or the interface that we made for people to understand what was going on behind of this idea of changing your identity through another way, or through agents that are similar to life, or that come just like from life, like bacteria. And the installation that we did recognizes a face using biometrics again, and uses every cluster of pixels that are a certain color, and works with them as bacteria, and so they mutate. So people can see their face mutating, like in a pixel level, and changing. But also it recognizes as their age, gender, mood, and race, and uses it to write something about them. And for that, we used neural networks. And the book Brave New World was trained in this neural network. But every time it tried to rewrite the book, we would add these mutations, and then it would write something different for the person that would come to the installation. And this is in Spanish. I also cloned my voice. So in the installation, after it recognizes it, it reads with my voice whatever it wrote. But here is some translation for it. And that would be it. Thank you very much.